So a couple weeks ago, when I heard that Silicon Valley Bank failed, I also heard that Silicon Valley Bank UK had been sold to HSBC for £1 British. And it made me wonder, is Silicon Valley Bank UK that valuable to the British tech sector? And exactly how big is the British tech sector? Let's take a look today on Valley of the Dolly. So first, let's just get it right out of the way. The UK tech sector is huge. It's worth more than $1 trillion US. Now let's take a look at Silicon Valley UK, which is absolutely tiny compared to Silicon Valley United States. So Silicon Valley UK had about 5.5 billion pounds in loans, and it had over 3,000 customers who are related to the tech industry, especially tech startups. And it had deposits that were worth over 6.7 billion pounds. Silicon Valley Bank in the United States was worth about 209 billion US dollars in assets, so significantly larger than what you're seeing in the United Kingdom. But the role that it played in the United Kingdom was valuable because it had a big association with UK startup firms. And it's believed that if Silicon Valley Bank had gone belly up, or if there had been a run on the bank, it might have affected 30 to 40% of the tech startups in the United Kingdom, and it might have affected up to 50,000 people who are employed in that tech sector. That's why it was considered valuable enough by the UK government that they wanted to step in. Let's take a look at the British tech sector, because it's much more vibrant and strong than I was aware of. We've heard so much talk about Brexit and all the problems that have happened because of that, but we haven't heard a lot of talk about how large the British tech sector is and how fast it's growing. As I mentioned before, the UK tech sector is now worth over $1 trillion US. In comparison, let's take a look at the German tech sector, which is worth 467 billion US dollars, or the French tech sector, which is worth 307 billion US dollars. The UK tech sector leads both of those two countries when it comes to not just overall funding, but the number of unicorns and the number of startups that appear in those marketplaces. Part of this is due to a decision inside the UK and the UK government to support technology. The UK Science and Technology Framework was established with a singular goal, which was to cement the UK's place as a global science and technology superpower by 2030. If you look at the total funding that went into European tech in 2021, 33% of the total European investments went to the United Kingdom and its tech sector. If you look at tech startups, almost 30 billion in funding went towards UK tech startups in 2021, and that's almost a threefold increase compared to the prior year, when investment in 2020 was about 11.2 billion British pounds. Also, if you look at the combined value of British tech companies that have started just since 2020, it's believed to be worth over 540 billion pounds. So that reflects tremendous growth in companies that have just been established in the last 22 years. You see a lot of people, countries, and companies overseas identifying Britain as an investment place for tech. In 2021, 63% of investments were coming from overseas. This is an increase from just 50% in 2016. So in just 5 years, it's a tremendous jump. There are other sectors of the tech industry that are also incredibly strong that don't get a lot of press. One, for example, is impact tech. And impact tech is technology related to the UN's climate goals. And with this, the UK has over 1,200 companies that are dedicated towards impact tech, and they've raised over $3 billion in funding since that point. The UK tech sector has also had tremendous growth. In 2012, which is just 10 years ago, the UK tech ecosystem was valued at just £44 billion. Since then, it's grown 17 times bigger in value. The UK scale-up ecosystem is now valued at more than 50 times what it was just 10 years ago. Deep tech is now 33 times more in investments in 2022 than it had been just 11 years earlier in 2011. When you look at the number of people who are working inside of tech, in 2012, 2011, there were 2.2 million people in the tech ecosystem in Great Britain. 10 years later, that number is over 3 million. So you understand why tech itself is becoming very important to the British economy. Towards that growth, unicorns become very important as a gauge to the increase in the size of the technology industry for a country. In 2020, the UK had about 116 unicorns, and these are companies that are defined at over $1 billion, tech companies defined with over $1 billion in valuations. You move forward 1 year, and that number has grown from 116 to 144. And futurecorns, which are defined as fast-growing companies, which are predicted to be the most valuable businesses in the next few years, that number went in just 1 year from 204 to 237. So you see the sector growing not just with the companies that are there currently, but the companies that are developing very quickly. Part of this, and the reason that Britain has seen such strong growth, is because the number one university for tech founders right now is Cambridge. And it's believed that there are over 500 founders who graduated from Cambridge who have been able to raise at least 10 million for their startups. They're not the only university in the top 20 that's on this list from the UK, Oxford, and there are a couple others as well. So education, as well as money flowing in from overseas, has created a great mix for creating these startups. Also, these unicorns are spread across Britain. They're not located just in London itself. There are 8 cities that have at least 2 unicorns. We're talking about Bristol, Cambridge, Edinburgh, Leeds, London, Manchester, Nottingham, and Oxford. Collectively, they have at least 112 unicorns, or companies that are worth over $1 billion now in the tech sector. And if you compare that to Germany with 63 or France with 36, those 8 cities have more unicorns than the 2 countries combined. We found that Brexit has created a lot of headaches for the UK economy, and it's brought forward a lot of question marks about where the economy is headed, where development is going. But you can see that the UK tech sector is definitely a huge bright spot inside of the economy. And it'll be very interesting to see where it's headed over the next couple of years. Because now that it has ankled all of the rules and regulations and laws that restricted growth on technology startups inside of the EU, you see how the UK has flourished and expanded so quickly. It'll be interesting to see if Germany and France and the Netherlands and some of the other big tech strongholds inside of Europe will be able to produce that same kind of growth in the next few years. We hope so. So if you are in those sectors, I'd love to hear what your feedback is. Do you see that kind of growth happening across other EU countries as well? There are unicorns spread out across Europe, and there are a lot of great startups and developments happening there. So I'd be interested to hear your feedback. This has been Ted at Valley of the Dolly. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe buttons, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you. Bye now.